A family trapped. Water rising. Second from death. No rescue in sight. Until something impossible appeared in the dark. What happened in the next 8 minutes would change everything you believed about heroes. Because sometimes they have 4 legs. Saturday morning, 8:15 a.m. The Morrison kitchen smelled like maple syrup and fresh coffee. Sarah Morrison was buttering toast while her husband Mike checked his phone for the weather forecast. Their 2 kids, Emma and Jacob, were arguing over who got the last piece of bacon. Just another ordinary weekend. Just another ordinary family. "Honey, can you grab the cooler from the garage?" Sarah called out, wiping Emma's sticky fingers with a dish towel. Mike was already moving, that eager energy of a dad who'd been planning this camping trip for months. Their first real family adventure since life got complicated. Emma bounced in her chair. "Are we going to see bears, Daddy?" "Maybe, sweetheart, but from a safe distance." Jacob, all of 8 years old and convinced he knew everything, rolled his eyes. "Bears don't come out during the day. Everyone knows that." Sarah smiled, watching her husband load sleeping bags and hiking boots into their SUV. Mike had been working 60-hour weeks lately. The stress lines around his eyes were deeper now. But today he looked like the man she married 15 years ago. They thought this would be their biggest worry, whether to pack extra Esmore supplies. 5 miles away, in an abandoned barn that hadn't seen paint in decades, a different kind of family was facing a very different kind of morning. Rex had been searching for 3 hours. The German Shepherd's coat was matted with mud, his paws raw from digging. He circled the collapsed section of the barn roof again, whimpering. Underneath those rotted wooden beams, barely visible in the debris, was a tiny black nose. His puppy, his 8-week-old son who'd been exploring where he shouldn't have been when the old timber finally gave way. Rex pawed at the largest beam. It didn't budge. He tried to squeeze his muzzle into the gap, to somehow pull his puppy free with his teeth. But the space was too narrow, the wood too heavy. Every few minutes, he'd hear the faintest whimper from below. His baby was alive, trapped, scared, and Rex was powerless to help. Just a stray dog, people would say. No owner, no home, no one who cared if he lived or died. If only they knew what he was capable of. Back on Pine Valley Road, Mike was adjusting his rearview mirror, grinning at his kids in the back seat. Everybody buckled up? This is going to be the best weekend ever. Sarah reached over and squeezed his hand. "I love you. Love you too." The GPS cheerfully announced their route. 37 miles to Pine Valley Campground. Scenic mountain roads with occasional deer crossings. Drive carefully. Mike had driven these roads before. He knew about the deer. He was going to speed limit, maybe 5 under. He was being careful. Everything was perfect. The buck appeared at mile marker 23. It happened the way these things always happen. Too fast to think. Too sudden to react properly. 1 second, Mike was pointing out a red-tailed hawk to the kids. The next second, 200 pounds of wild animal was standing directly in front of their SUV, frozen in the headlights like a deer. Mike yanked the wheel hard to the right. The SUV lurched off the asphalt onto the shoulder, but the shoulder was soft from last night's rain. The tires found no grip. Only wet leaves. Only loose gravel. Only gravity pulling them toward the steel guardrail that was supposed to keep cars safe, but instead bent like tissue paper under 3,000 pounds of momentum. Sarah's scream cut through the air as they broke through. The embankment was steeper than it looked from the road. Much steeper. Their SUV didn't roll. It tumbled. End over end, metal crushing, glass shattering, until it hit the pond at the bottom with a sound like thunder. The water was deeper than anyone expected. The SUV went nose first into the murky pond and immediately began to sink. Water poured through the broken windows. The electrical system sparked once, twice, then died completely. No power windows. No power locks. No way out. Inside the rapidly flooding vehicle, for people who'd been laughing about Esmores 2 minutes earlier, now found themselves in a fight for their lives. But 5 miles away, Rex's head snapped up. He'd heard something, faint but unmistakable. The sound of screaming. The sound of terror. The sound of a family that needed help. Rex looked back at the wooden beam that trapped his puppy. Then he looked toward the distant sound of human voices crying out in desperation. Two families in crisis. But Rex could only save one. The question was, which family would he choose? And how could a stray dog with no training, no owner, and no reason to care about humans possibly save anyone when he couldn't even save his own son? The answer would change everything they thought they knew about heroes. The water was ice cold. Mike Morrison felt it seeping through his shoes first, then his socks, then crawling up his legs like liquid death. The SUV had hit the pond nose first, and now pond water was gushing through the broken windshield, through the door seals, through every crack and crevice the impact had created. Sarah was holding Emma above the rising waterline, but Emma was crying so hard she could barely breathe anyway. "Daddy, I can't breathe. Daddy, help me." Jacob pressed himself against the ceiling, his 8-year-old eyes wide with terror he didn't understand. Why won't the doors open? Why won't they open? Mike pulled on the door handle. Nothing. The electronic locks were dead. He tried the window button. Nothing. The electrical system had died the moment they hit the water. He pushed against the door with his shoulder, threw his whole body weight against it, but the water pressure outside was too strong. 3 feet of murky pond water pressed against that door like a concrete wall. They were trapped. "Use your phone," Sarah screamed. "Break the window with your phone." Mike grabbed his iPhone and started hammering it against the driver's side window. The safety glass spiderwebbed but didn't break. Again. The phone's screen shattered, cutting his palm, but the window held. The water was up to their waists now. 5 miles away, Rex lifted his head from the wooden beam that trapped his puppy. He'd heard something, faint but unmistakable. Human voices. Screaming. The kind of screaming that meant someone was dying. Rex looked down at the tiny black nose barely visible beneath the collapsed timber. His son, his baby, still alive but trapped, just like Rex was trapped between an impossible choice. Save his puppy, or save the humans. He couldn't do both. Rex's ears flattened against his head as the distant screams grew more desperate. Then he did something that would haunt him forever. He pressed his nose against the gap where his puppy lay trapped, whimpered once, and started running. Running toward strangers. Away from his child. Back at the pond, Mike found the emergency hammer in the center console. It was small, meant for seatbelt cutting, not window breaking, but it was their only hope. He smashed it against the passenger window. Crack. Again. Crack. The safety glass spiderwebbed deeper, but still held together. The water was chest deep now. Sarah was holding both kids above her head, but her arms were shaking with exhaustion. "Mike, hurry." "I'm trying." He hit the window again, and again, and again. His shoulder burned. His lungs burned. The hammer was too small, the glass too strong, and they were running out of time. "We're not going to make it, are we?" Sarah's voice broke on the words. The SUV tilted forward another degree. Water sloshed over the dashboard. The roof was almost touching the surface of the pond. Jacob started crying. Not the angry crying of a frustrated kid, but the helpless sobbing of a child who understood, for the first time in his life, that his parents couldn't fix this. That they were all going to die. "I don't want to die, Mommy." Emma clung to Sarah's neck. "I'm scared. I'm so scared." Mike tried the hammer one more time. The glass cracked deeper, but it wouldn't break. It wouldn't break. His hand was bleeding. Sarah's arms were trembling. The kids were sobbing. And the water was rising faster now, much faster. "I love you," Sarah whispered. "I love you all so much." They embraced. A family of 4 holding each other in the last seconds before the pond claimed them. Mike pulled his wife and children close, feeling the icy water creep up their necks, knowing that in 30 seconds, maybe less, they would all be underwater. He'd failed them. He was supposed to protect them, and he'd failed. The roof of the SUV touched the surface of the pond. They had maybe 20 seconds left, maybe 15. Sarah closed her eyes and started praying. Emma was hyperventilating. Jacob had gone quiet in that terrible way children do when they're too scared to make noise. 10 seconds. Mike tried the door one last time, knowing it was useless, knowing the water pressure would never let it open, but trying anyway, because what else do you do when your family is about to drown? 5 seconds. The water reached their chins, then their mouths. Sarah lifted Emma higher, but there was nowhere left to go. The ceiling was right there. The air was almost gone. It seemed nothing could save them. They were seconds from going under, second from becoming just another tragic story about a family who took a wrong turn on a mountain road. But then, something burst through the brush at the pond's edge. Something that had run 5 miles through forest and field, something that had made an impossible choice, something that was about to do the unthinkable. Rex had arrived, and what happened next would redefine everything they thought they knew about heroes. Rex stood at the edge of the pond, his chest heaving, mud caked between his toes. The SUV was almost completely submerged now, just the very top of the roof visible above the dark water. But he could hear them, muffled screams, desperate pounding on glass, a family drowning just 50 feet away. He barked, once, twice, a deep, commanding bark that echoed across the water. No one answered. No one was coming. Rex plunged into the pond, his powerful legs churning through the murky water. But the current was stronger than he'd expected. The pond wasn't just deep, it was fed by an underground spring that created a subtle but relentless pull toward the center. Every stroke forward pushed him 2 strokes sideways. He couldn't reach them. Rex fought his way back to shore, water streaming from his coat, his mind racing. Inside that car, a family was dying, and he was the only one who could help. But how? How does a 70-pound dog save 4 people trapped inside a 3,000-pound vehicle? That's when his ears picked up something else. The distant rumble of machinery. Construction equipment. Rex's head snapped toward the sound. 200 yards back up the mountain road, there was a work site. Orange cones, heavy equipment, and something else. Something that might work. Rex ran. His paws slipped on the wet asphalt as he sprinted up the steep road, his lungs burning, his legs screaming, but he didn't slow down. The construction crew was on lunch break. Hard hats scattered on the ground. Orange cones marking off the work zone. And there, coiled like a metal snake beside the road grader, was exactly what he needed. A heavy chain. Thick steel links designed to pull tree stumps and move boulders. The kind of chain that could handle serious weight. Rex grabbed one end in his jaws. The metal tasted like rust and oil, and the chain was so heavy it made his neck muscle strain, but he started dragging it. Step by agonizing step, down the mountain road, through the gravel, over the embankment. The chain caught on rocks, snagged on branches, but Rex kept pulling. His jaw ached, his shoulders burned, but somewhere behind him, a family was running out of air. What Rex did next, no one would have thought possible. He dragged that chain to the water's edge, took the end in his mouth, and swam back out toward the SUV. But this time, he wasn't fighting the current. He was using it, letting it carry him downstream toward the car while he kicked with everything he had. The chain dragged behind him like an anchor. Inside the SUV, there was maybe 6 inches of air left at the very top of the cabin. Mike Morrison was holding his family's heads above water, but his own mouth was already submerged. He was breathing through his nose, taking tiny sips of air when he could. That's when he saw it. A dark shape outside the passenger window. Moving, swimming, getting closer. Rex pressed his face against the glass and looked directly into Mike's eyes. For a moment, neither moved. Man and dog, separated by inches of glass and a lifetime of assumptions about what animals could and couldn't do. Then Rex dropped the chain end and pawed at the window. Mike understood. With numb fingers, he reached through the dark water to the door handle inside the car. The external handle had broken in the crash, but if he could somehow thread the chain through the internal mechanism, the water was up to his nose now. He had to hold his breath, duck underwater, and work by feel alone. The chain end was heavy, awkward, but Mike managed to loop it through the door handle assembly. Above water, Rex was already swimming back toward shore, the other end of the chain clamped in his jaws. But here's what nobody understood, what nobody could have predicted. Rex wasn't just buying them time. He was about to attempt something that should have been impossible. A 70-pound German Shepherd was about to try to pull a 3,000-pound SUV through 50 feet of pond water. Rex reached the shore, dropped the chain, and started backing up. Step by step, the chain stretched taut between the dog and the drowning car. When Rex felt the resistance, When he felt the full weight of that vehicle transmitted through 40 feet of steel links, he didn't hesitate. He leaned forward, and he pulled. His claws dug into the muddy bank. His muscles strained against the skin. Every fiber in his body screamed as he threw his weight against that chain. The physics were all wrong. The weight differential was insane. This shouldn't work. But something extraordinary happened. The SUV stopped sinking. For the first time since it hit the water, the car held steady. Not rising, but not descending either. Rex had created enough tension in that chain to counteract the vehicle's negative buoyancy. But Rex wasn't done. He adjusted his grip, planted his back legs wider, and pulled again. Harder this time. The chain sang with tension. Rex's paws slipped in the mud, but he dug deeper, found purchase, and kept pulling. The SUV moved. Just an inch, maybe two, but it moved toward shore. Inside the car, Mike felt the shift and realized what was happening. A dog, a stray dog with no training, no owner, no reason to care about them, was pulling their 3,000-pound SUV through the water, single-handedly dragging them back from death. Rex pulled again and again. Each effort moved the car a little closer to shallow water, a little closer to safety, a little closer to impossible. But here's what made this moment truly incredible. Here's what would leave everyone who witnessed it speechless. Rex wasn't just saving them with brute strength. He was outsmarting the laws of physics, using the chain to distribute the load, using the water's buoyancy to reduce the effective weight, using angles and leverage that shouldn't have been possible for an animal to understand. This wasn't just heroism. This was genius. And in 30 seconds, when the construction workers returned from lunch and saw what was happening, they would witness something that would change everything they believed about the intelligence of animals. But that's not even the most incredible part of this story. The construction workers came back from lunch arguing about football. Joe Martinez was unwrapping his sandwich when he saw it. A German shepherd, soaking wet, straining against something in the mud. A chain, a heavy chain that stretched from the dog's jaws all the way out into the pond. What the hell is that dog doing? Then Joe saw the roof of the SUV barely visible above the water surface. Oh my God, there's people in that car. The workers dropped their lunch and sprinted toward Rex. Four grown men grabbed the chain behind the exhausted dog and added their combined strength to his. The steel links went taut. The SUV groaned, and slowly, impossibly, the vehicle began moving toward shallow water. Rex's legs were shaking with exhaustion, but he didn't let go. Even with help, even with four strong men pulling beside him, he kept his jaws clamped on that chain. This was his rescue, his family to save. The SUV scraped against the bottom as it reached the shallows. And that's when the physics finally worked in their favor. The water pressure equalized. The safety glass that had held so stubbornly finally gave way. The windows exploded outward in a shower of crystalline fragments. Mike Morrison's head broke the surface first. He gasped, choked, gasped again. Sweet mountain air filled his lungs like a drug. Sarah came up next, still clutching Emma, both of them coughing up pond water but breathing. Jacob was last, his face blue with cold, but his eyes wide and alive. Alive. They were all alive. Joe Martinez called 911 while his crew pulled the family from the wreckage. The Morrisons collapsed on the muddy shore, wrapped in the workers' jackets, shivering and sobbing and breathing. Just breathing. Emma couldn't stop crying. Not from fear now, but from relief so overwhelming her 8-year-old body didn't know how to process it. Jacob clung to his father like he'd never let go. Sarah kept touching each family member, counting them, making sure they were real. Mike looked around frantically. Where is he? Where's the dog? What dog? Joe asked. The German shepherd. He saved us. He pulled us out with the chain. Where did he go? The workers exchanged glances. They'd seen the dog, sure, but they figured they were the ones doing the heavy lifting. They didn't understand. Couldn't understand. Rex had already vanished. The paramedics arrived 12 minutes later. Oxygen masks, thermal blankets, vitals checked and double-checked. The Morrison family would spend the night in the hospital for observation, but they were going to be fine. Completely fine. Except for one thing. Mike Morrison couldn't stop asking about the dog that saved them. 2 miles away, Rex was back at the old barn, his body screaming with exhaustion. His jaw ached from the chain. His muscles felt like liquid fire. But he was digging again, clawing at the wooden beam that trapped his puppy. He'd made his choice. He'd save the humans. But now his son was going to die because Rex hadn't been there to help him. The irony was crushing. Rex dug until his paws bled. He pulled at the beam until his strength gave out completely. Then he collapsed next to the debris pile and whimpered, a sound of pure heartbreak. He'd saved 4 lives today, but he was about to lose the one life that mattered most. That's when he heard voices, human voices, coming closer. The construction workers had followed Rex's muddy paw prints from the pond. Joe Martinez and his crew emerged from the tree line just as Rex was making one final, desperate attempt to free his puppy. There he is. That's the dog. They saw the situation immediately. The collapsed beam, the tiny puppy trapped underneath. Rex's bloody paws, his exhausted, desperate attempts to save his baby. Jesus, he's got a puppy stuck under there. Joe Martinez had been in construction for 20 years. He knew how to move heavy objects. Stand back, boy. We got this. It took all 4 men and a truck jack, but they lifted that beam. Rex dove into the gap and emerged with his puppy in his mouth. Tiny, black and brown, breathing. The puppy was alive. Rex carried his son to a patch of soft grass and started licking him frantically, checking for injuries, warming him with his body heat. The little guy was weak but unharmed. A miracle. That's when the Morrison family arrived. Mike had insisted on coming back to find the dog that saved them. Sarah thought he was crazy, but she understood. How do you just go home after something like that? How do you not thank the hero who gave you your life back? They found Rex in the clearing behind the barn, curled around his puppy, both of them finally safe. The moment Mike saw them together, everything clicked. The full picture, the devastating choice Rex had made. He left his baby, Mike whispered. He abandoned his own puppy to save us. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. The workers went quiet. Even the kids understood what they were witnessing. Ultimate sacrifice. A father who'd risked his child's life to save complete strangers. Emma was the first to move. She walked slowly toward Rex, her small hand extended. Rex looked up at her with exhausted brown eyes. She touched his head gently. Thank you, she whispered. Jacob joined her. Then Sarah. Then Mike. All of them kneeling in the mud around a stray dog and his baby, tears streaming down their faces. Rex had done something beyond heroic, beyond intelligent. He'd made the kind of moral choice that most humans struggle with their entire lives. Save your family, or save strangers. Protect what you love, or sacrifice everything for people who mean nothing to you. Rex had chosen love. Not romantic love. Not even familial love. Universal love. The kind of love that sees a drowning child and acts without thinking. The kind of love that looks at suffering and says, not on my watch. The kind of love that makes heroes out of ordinary creatures. Sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms. Sometimes they don't walk on 2 legs or speak with words. Sometimes heroes have 4 paws, a tail, and a heart bigger than anyone thought possible. But Rex's story was far from over, because what happened next would inspire an entire community and change dozens of lives forever. And it all started with a simple question from 8-year-old Emma Morrison. 6 months later, Rex was wearing a custom collar that read Hero in bold letters. But he had no idea what it meant. All Rex knew was that he lived in a house now, with a family that fed him twice a day and scratched behind his ears and let his son sleep on the couch. The Morrison kids had named his puppy Scout, and Emma insisted on walking both dogs every morning before school. Rex's story had made the local news, then the regional news. Then something incredible happened. The Pine Valley Animal Shelter reported a 300% increase in German Shepherd adoptions. Families were driving from 3 states away, asking specifically for dogs like Rex. Dogs that had been waiting months for homes were suddenly in demand. Stray dogs, abandoned dogs, dogs that nobody wanted, until they heard Rex's story. Because Rex reminded us that true courage isn't about size. It's not about species. It's not about having superpowers or training or even being loved by humans. True courage is about choosing to act when someone needs help, even when it costs you everything. Rex's story went viral because it touched something deep in our hearts. The belief that heroes can come from anywhere. That love is bigger than logic. That sometimes the most broken, forgotten creatures are capable of the most extraordinary acts. But here's what I want to know. Do you believe animals can sense when we need them most? Have you ever been saved by an unexpected hero? Maybe it wasn't as dramatic as Rex's rescue. Maybe it was just a dog that comforted you when you were grieving, a cat that refused to leave your side when you were sick, a horse that somehow knew you needed gentleness that day. Animals see us differently than we see ourselves. They don't care about our jobs, our mistakes, our failures. They see our hearts. And when our hearts are breaking, they act. Rex saved 4 lives that day in the pond. But how many lives could your story save? If you believe in everyday heroes, share Rex's story. Let people know that courage comes in all shapes and sizes. That sometimes the best heroes are the ones we rescue first. And if you want more incredible, true stories about animal heroism, hit that subscribe button. Because Rex isn't the only 4-legged hero out there. There are thousands of them, waiting to be noticed, waiting to be celebrated, waiting to remind us that love is the most powerful force in the universe, even when it comes with paws and a wagging tail.